Hi, good morning. It's funny, we just come through Halloween, and David Letterman said years ago that Halloween is the beginning of the holiday shopping season. I mean, that's for women. Beginning of the holiday shopping season for men is Christmas Eve. Guilty as charged. Well, today we're going to talk about not holidays, not shopping, or a little bit, but certainly we'll talk about the inflation that is still with us, the interest rate outlook, and the varied and various taxes that we got questions on, certainly in British Columbia. And then finally, we deal with 14 different questions going from EVs to solar panels to where should I be buying real estate? Well, first of all, when we take a quick look at the markets around the world, first of all, we should just mention, we talked about the underused housing tax. Well, this UHT was supposed to be filed by October 31st. The government extended it to April 30th next year. That means that if you wait till filing it at April 29th next year, you will not be charged a penalty or any interest charges. Now, but you have to file for 2022 and 2023. Why did they do it? Well, obviously, there were so many problems, not that well thought out, and people just didn't know what to do, so they extended it for the second time. So that much for the UHT. The STR, the short-term rental question, we did a video with Carl Green, and it was one of our more successful videos. We had some 2,200 views in the first day. It was very, very much at the heart of many British Columbians, both for and against. Certainly there was a lot of people yelling, yeah, that'll lower house prices. And others were saying this is total nonsense. It'll affect the movie industry, it'll affect the health workers, it'll affect, and so on and so on. You've seen enough on the short-term rentals, and I have had enough questions on it. Just go Google it. It's now law. The British Columbia government voted it in. The opposition wanted to change the 90 days to 30 days and whatnot. None has changed. It's been in as proclaimed. But for most of you that are in the business, it will not be law until about April, and it may take 3 to 5 months to get the enforcements because there's hefty penalties on it. So there's a little leeway, but talk to a lawyer, talk to your organization, if you're against it, go to Facebook and join some of the groups that have been formed. The legal counsel has been hired, but that's all I'm going to say on short-term rates. If you want to have the details, look at the video at my YouTube channel. And then now, of course, in the meantime, the government also, and here's the 3 questions on it, the government put out a new legislation at the end of October, and that is sort of overriding all municipalities. It's funny, the government says, I'm the boss, and municipalities have to obey, and many municipalities don't realize that. The government says, regardless of what your municipal bylaws are, regardless what you have planned to do or not, it is now any municipality in British Columbia over 5,000 people has to, and in the lot is zoned single family, they can put 4 houses on the lot or 4 properties, or even 6 if it's close to transport and has the right kind of sizing. In fact, the BC also, government ordered the city of Vancouver to add 29,000 houses over the next 5 years. That's an edict. Thou must do it. It announced also housing targets for 10 cities. Kind of interesting. This is what you must do, and we'll watch you. We'll give you what that is. Created 47 city list in British Columbia that targeted sort of the Housing Supply Act, and they also created some sort of digital building permit. Now, you can argue till you're blue in the face. I mean, I think the quintessential Canadian neighborhoods, nice cul-de-sacs, you now will be having right next to your sixplex, right across the street from you, let's say in the cul-de-sacs, every second house would be a fourplex. So a lot of things could be said about it, and I'm writing about it in the OZZIE'S. But one thing that is actually not so bad, and that is that the existing zoning, if the official community plan, for instance, is for high-rise zoning, then the government says that the legislation will eliminate public hearings for site-by-site rezoning and spot zoning. That certainly speeds up the process, but I tell you, that'll be a hot potato for a lot of neighborhoods that don't want the high rise there, that want to have some participation. This will overrule that. You don't need to do it anymore. So once the developer is in an area that has the official community plan for a 30-story building, he can do it. It's now just a regular building permits and whatever else he has to do, but he doesn't have to go through public hearing. Very, very interesting that. So like with all new legislation, the devil is in the details, and we'll update you if we feel that we have to. Now, some of the questions that came up, as usual, the US dollar is the biggest question I get probably 3 or 4 times every single time for years. I still believe that the US dollar will be and is the reserve currency of the world. I know there's a question here, what about the new Indian currency? Well, I don't think there's a new Indian currency, but there was, as I wrote about in the OZZIE'S, a group of companies that are trying to, and they're still trying to create a currency that they all work with. But the interesting thing is that while India buys Russian oil, Russia will not accept anything but rubles, and India will not pay in anything than rupees. So in the end, guess what they're going to do? They're going to use dollars. I think the US dollar will stay strong, if not even go stronger, because you're now getting good interest on the treasury bills and so on. So that's what that is. Next question, do you own an EV? No, I don't own an electric vehicle. I've written about it at length. I have a ski house in Kimberley, and to drive 1,000 kilometers in an EV is the scariest thing that I can think about. I also think the prices on the units are fairly outrageous, and if there weren't for the government subsidies, the industry would probably collapse. So, you know, there's the old story that, you know, the settlers came into the wilderness and, you know, talked to the Indians and everything was happy. But no, the settlers were the ones that got killed, you know, or rather the pioneers, the pioneers got killed. I want to be a settler once the treaty has been signed, you know, and so with EVs, before I buy an EV, the stories, the horror stories we hear about them not working, or that the plug that I have is not working. A lot of the cars sold now don't have the Tesla club, even though some of the car makers have made deals with them. And I hear that the production at Honda, production at Ford stopped $12 billion worth of EV registrations. And in Germany, everywhere is saying, hey, our car lots are full of EV cars. And as government subsidies come off, that gets even worse. The other question that is similar, and that is on solar panels. Now, I'm no expert on solar panels, but it's kind of interesting that this just in the last 3 weeks, 2 major solar panel companies went down in value by some 20%. And so, you know, what had been planned on the solar panels only worked with subsidies, but the worst thing that's happening on the solar side, if I find it here, is that a lot of them need repairs much sooner. Some of them never worked. You know, their whole, don't listen to me. Go on Google it. Go solar panel problems, and you'll be amazed at how many problems all throughout the United States. Some of the biggest companies go down. A big Danish company now also shut down a wind generated power. And again, more and more, we realize that all this electrification that we had planned depended on government subsidies. And as they are run out, there is no profit to be made, so these companies shut down. Now, the Dutch company, and a strange name, Ostrot or something, and that just happened also last week. This Dutch company said, we can't continue. You know, it's impossible, nothing works. And the New Jersey government is going to sue them and whatnot. And we're going to see more of that because we're all for it, but it only works with subsidies. So it's not something for me. The next question was, can you do a chat GTP and Pictory video? Well, I think on both of those areas, I think Pictory is the easiest way to make a video. If, for instance, my talk now, I wanted to add all sorts of houses and charts and graphs, I just put this video into ChatGPT and it will show me little pictures, and I could create a professional looking video. And I have done so. If you go to Jurock Video, take a look at my OZZIE'S videos, you look, hey, right, that Ozzie, he must know something. Well, he knows Pictory, right? Pictory.ai. On ChatGPT, there is so much information out there. I would just look at ChatGPT, understand it in this way. You put in a letter that you want to send to your clients. You give you a copy, don't leave it there. The next question, ask it, make it more human, make it more friendly, make it more businesslike. And you'll be amazed. I did 5 versions of the same letter, and you look at it all, and it looks like it's totally rewritten. And it takes seconds, So I would ever use ChatGPT, and I think that more and more of us will use it for writing letters, for writing marketing plans, and so on. But I'm not going to do a video on it. There's a rumor of a big developer going under. What do you know? I know nothing. What is it? I know nothing. I know nothing. There is which are the best places in the world to buy real estate in 2024? Well, if you say the world, I don't like to go anywhere than Canada and the United States, primarily because we understand the laws, we understand the banking system. And while you might have to understand the laws in Panama or Mexico, the banking system maybe doesn't work for you. It's always who you know, not what you know, and the horror stories abound all around the world. So I like to stay in Canada and in United States. However, we have some real problems in the United States with an 8% 30-year mortgage now. I mean, first of all, would you sign an 8% 30-year mortgage? As this bites, as more and more homes get to have to use that 8% rate, the market is going to stop doing well in a fairly dramatic fashion, and that is not going to bode well for the future in the market in the United States and in Canada as well. Now, the reason why that is that we are seeing more layoffs ahead. We are seeing a recession definitely in the first quarter. I know there's so many people, yes recession, no recessions. The point is that we are seeing more and more layoffs of more and more corporations. If you just look at the fine print, yes, the top lines are still looking pretty good jobs, both Canada and United States. But RBC Desjardins actually did a summary of which provinces would do well next year. And Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Newfoundland were the 3 provinces that they say will survive any kind of a storm. And I would agree with that, particularly Alberta and Calgary and Edmonton, the major cities. But BC and Ontario outlook, it says, is dim. The housing market is a big part of the economy. Households are much more indebted, making them the most vulnerable to the effect of interest rates and the economy. So they feel that those are the provinces should you be in. Ozzy, when exactly are all the mortgages going to be renewed? Now that question came, for some reason, I got 4 of those that wanted to know when do most people in British Columbia have to renew their mortgage. Now, RBC has come out and said that 60% of all outstanding mortgages coming due in the next 3 years, meaning 2024, 25, and 2026. And RBC also says that they'll be facing a payment shock, which would completely change the risk for Canadian banks too. So according to RBC, and this is sort of an eyebrow opener, easy for me to say. I'm just looking whether I'm recording. I've done this before. I made a great show and then didn't push the button. Okay, according to RBC analysis, more than 186 billion in mortgages are set to renew next year. Wow. Now, at today's interest rates, the weighted average payment shock would be 32%. Now, that's huge. That means that if I pay 1,000 now, I pay 1,300 or something like that. The 32% increase in price, that's dramatic. Now, there's a $315 billion mortgages coming due by 2025. And so the variable mortgage factors are also see significant shock, perhaps as high as 84% by 2026 if rates don't decline. So now why is that? Well, in 2020, we had a hot market, and so 5-year terms were a norm. So that's why it's 2025. By 2021, and it was, getting even hotter, many people went in a 3-year term, which is coming due next year. That's why the rates are so different and difficult to calculate as to when it happens. The reality is that you need a good quality mortgage broker. There's just no question about it. We have in BC, we got Carl Green, you saw him on the internet. You have Jared Dreyer from Verico, and in Alberta, you know, you have Keaton, and that we've had videos with. Go for a professional, because you can't fool around. With the mortgages now, every bank is different. Every bank has different rates and regulations. And they're scared, you know, of all these renewals. And you would be too if you were in charge of such a bank, right? You would say, hey, you know, what are we supposed to do? Now, the thing on interest is another question is, you keep saying that we can get 5.7% interest rates. I get that question all the time. I don't know, do you read or listen to anything I say? I said right now, I understand that at RBC you can get as much as 6%. Somebody said they got 6.2%, depending on the terms. Is it 3 years, 5 years, 3 months, 6 months? And again, we said this before, if you had $1 million and you're not exactly sure, when you do a third, do 3 months for the higher rates, if that's what it is, and 6 months and a year. And but check it around. You know, somebody said they only got 4.9%. Well, in today's market, which is a crazy market, the rate of the GICs, you know, can be, you know, well over 5%, and in many cases over 6%. Now remember, if you just had your TV repossessed, you're not going to get the best rate either as a mortgagee or as an investor. Now the big question is where interest rates going to go. Now we have big talking heads arguing if rates don't come down, we're going to be all in terrible trouble. The United States is having there is 307 trillion in global debt. The debt, if you go to debtclock.org, that's debtclock.org, and take a look at how much money the United States owes of that 307 trillion, which, by the way, will never pay back, nor will the US pay back its debt. The only way to do it is through inflation, and that also answers the two questions I have on inflation again. The inflation question is confusing to people. The government says it's 3.8, you know, but then I go shopping, everything is more, but then it's falling and up, drives you crazy. The thing is, we're measuring different things, right? We used to have an inflation basket, and we put in oil, rents, house prices, we put all that in. And now we don't, we take it out. So we said, if you take out food and gas and oil and travel and all of that stuff, you take it out, then the rate is only 3.8%, you know. Give me a break, you know, it's crazy. And then the economists don't help you either. I mean, look, you know, the economists know 100 ways to seduce a woman, but they don't know any women, right? As I keep saying, you know, this is really important in the game of love to know the women. So there is no real answers on interest rates. Benjamin Tall and many like him believe that as early as next April, but certainly by July, rates are going to come down. I think if they do come down, they won't come down by much. I believe that they would like to have the rates higher. We talked about it many times, that over the last 50 years, 45 of those years, the rates were over 5%. It's only 2016, 17, 18, 19, for 5 years that the rates were below 5%. So it's quite likely that governments and central bankers around the world would. The experiment of low rates and negative rates just didn't work. Not in Switzerland, not in Germany, nowhere around the world has it worked. You know, you have to have some sort of return or banks go bankrupt. So very, very important that we understand that. Now, we say that the reason why the Federal Reserve didn't raise the rates is that the bond rate almost hit 5%, the 10-year rate. And then that fact allowed them not to have to raise the rates, because if you raise the bond rates, excuse me, in the United States, the 10-year rate, but you know, 3 days later, the rate is back down to 0.2, and again, you talk to all the talking heads, you know, eyes glaze over, and you say, huh? You know, I can only tell you this. I believe that inflation is the only outcome other than a total collapse, which we will always muddle through. I don't believe that, but I talked about it last month. Timing is of the issue. Right now is not the greatest time. So all the people that think the markets are coming down because of short-term rentals, are going to be wrong. That's not the reason. If markets come down, then it'll be just the game, right? The timing aspect, the confusion. I mean, really, I'm a first-time buyer. I don't really want to know. What do I do? 3 years, 1 year, 5 years? Talking heads don't help you. So you have to have a specialist to talk to you and make it understandable. So the global metrics overall are slowing. Germany is slowing. All around the world, the trailer container ship companies are slowing. We're not delivering as many goods. We're slowing. We're going to have a recession. So in terms of pricing and whether I should be buying right now, I stay with what I have said before. If you're an investor and you get a deal of a lifetime, and by that I mean you get an assignment where somebody walks away from, I've seen $110,000 in the last 2 weeks. Somebody walked away from that. Several people walk away from $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And the thing is, if you do that, make sure that the building gets completed. That's still, we have problems. Now, at the same time, the sales offices are doing well. I was yesterday at a key marketing event for a development that is going to be on the west side, and the place was packed with realtors and people that had an interest in it. I'm talking to Pete Reisner. He says the sales centers are full of people wanting to buy. We're talking 300, 400 people. So the interest is there. If we take away the uncertainty and fear, inflation, deflation, interest rates, we will have a good market, but for now, it's still going to be kind of a little difficult. Now, the one question that I normally don't answer this early is, what did October do for your mind? I guess he's worried about my mind. Thank you very much. My mind is just fine, I think, most of the time. But yes, we did take a quick look at, and what we have is the sales this month in October were around 560, and there were 560 last October. So while we were up just a little bit in September, I think some 8%, this month we're even on single-family home. It's even. Now, what that means is, though, the Vancouver Real Estate Board, which is a great real estate board in terms of statistics, I just go to their website and look it up, but they're saying that, yes, it's even with last year, but we're running 32% below the 10-year average. So the thing is, no matter what you see, and it's very clearly, if you measure that 563 units sold on single-family homes in Vancouver, in 2021, it was 1,066, so that's almost double, right? And in October 2020, it was 1,268. So, whenever you hear the market is up, no, sales are way down. But remember, 2022 was way down. If you had my newsletter, every month I told you we're down 30%, 40%. And I forecast that next year, which is now, we're looking good. Yeah, so we're looking good. So new listings for homes in Vancouver up 13%, condos, new listings up 19%. In the Fraser Valley, new listings up 20% for houses and 17% for condos. But sales in the Fraser Valley were actually higher. They were up 16% higher rather than just even in Vancouver for single family, and condos are up 13%. So what does it mean? Well, what it means is that we are putting in the OZZIE'S newsletter always 5 years worth of numbers, right back to 2019. With a very quick look, you can see, okay, active listings were 4,235 this month, let's say, in Vancouver. It's about even with last year, but there were only 3,566 in 2021, okay? But in October 2019, they were higher than what they're now. So you get an idea of where you are at. And the market is not bad if you compare yourself to last year, but not that good if you compare yourself to previous years. And that's why we put in there, what was the absolute high? For instance, in Surrey, the absolute high in February 2022 was 1,929,000. Now it's 1,520,000. But for October, for any October months, that 538,000 was 470 in 2021, 400 in 2020, and 372 in 2019. So the price, on the condo in Surrey, is better for any October, but the high for a condo price in Surrey was 609,000. So that's why we put the numbers together. Subscribe to OZZIE'S.ca. It's free. but you won't see them in writing until sometime the week of November the 6th, I think. So there's a whole bunch of questions. Will there be more austerity? Yes, I think there'll be more austerity. The debt load is rising dramatically. Some of the credit card companies are reporting, more losses on people not paying. The debt service costs, we have wars, we have disasters, we have 24% of the United States income in taxes is going to be spent on interest, and that'll go higher if you listen to people like Gundlach. I think you pronounce his name like that. But overall, I am convinced, as always, we will be muddling through. We always seem to think, oh no, this is the end of the world. No, it isn't. We have been there before. We had Russian crisis, Asian crisis. We had all of these things happening to other and happening to us. But right now, I think cash is not trash. We talked last time about, particularly when you're older, you want to see maybe some cash. Look, currently I would be buying a deal of a lifetime. Make those stink bets. Get a realtor that will write an offer, and you'll be surprised. We had one of you send me 4 deals that had been listed in June. One at $1.9 million, then reduced to $1.8 million, reduced to $1.5 million, and sold at $1.4 million. And he had 4 examples like that in the area that he specializes in, where he says, somebody made a stink bid, and got it. In one particular area, it was down to $1.49 million, and then actually it sold for $1.2 million. So make those offers. They're, from a buyer's point of view, it's harder to look around, but once you pick your area that you like to live in as a homeowner, and still get the basement suite. There's a suite with the short-term rental problems. Should I still buy a house or rent a suite? You need the short-term rental, and remember, it only applies to short-term rentals. If you have the basement suite, you can still rent it out long-term. The problem is if you want to rent a basement suite out short-term and then also have a laneway home, which was perfectly logical, cost you a fortune. The city wanted you to do it, but you can only either the short-term home or the suite you can have on a short-term rental basis, which really is expensive. But that depends on your point of view. And as always, your point of view matters. So write me your notes, and I don't mind the razzing I get, particularly the one I got on short-term rentals. My God, some people get a life. We're talking about government institutions and different opinions in the greatest country in the whole world. And for those of you that think that I'm anti this or anti that, I am pro-democracy. I'm pro-Canada. There's no better place in the world. And now Winston Churchill says a democracy is the worst kind of government, but it's the best we have. And so we're allowed to say what we think, and we're allowed to have opinions. And yes, you're allowed to make opinions on my website. Some of you, I won't kiss you on both cheeks, but I won't kick you either. Have a great week. Bye-bye.